I've bought the cheapest 4-season tent that I could find, and I brought it out tonight for its maiden voyage. I was thinking of setting up here, but just checking above, there's quite a few big branches, and given the amount of wind we've had recently and the number of fallen trees around here, I don't really fancy risking it under that. So let's buckle back up and find somewhere else. I think just to be safe, I'm going to go and set up at one of my usual testing spots. Not worth getting squashed by a tree for a YouTube video, is it? That's better, look. Nice clear sky above me. There are still some trees around that technically could fall over and hit this area, but there's hardly any wind forecast tonight. Should be alright. Here's the tent. It's a Vango Helvellyn 200. It cost me 140 quid from Outdoor World Direct, and that included next day delivery. It's a pretty average pack size at 46 by 16 centimetres. Let's go and get it set up and then I'll give you a proper look. So we've got a bag here with a load of pegs in it. They are the shepherd's hook style pegs. They're really thick. These ones actually feel really strong. They will do the job, but I've bought my other pegs that I use all the time as well, the big sky ones. And we've got a bag of aluminium poles, and it says on the description that these are colour coded, so I can see a blue one there. We'll have a proper look at those in a minute. And we've got the fly sheet and the inner together, and then most, if not all, of the Vango tents come with these top opening bags, so it's really quick and easy to chuck your tent back into and cinch it up when you're done. So we've got two longer poles with a blue centre section, and then a shorter pole that's pre-arched or pre-bent with like a burnt red or orangey colour in the middle, and they're colour coded to go into these pole sleeves. So you can see we've got a little blue tab on that one, so that's a blue pole, and then the orangey red one goes in there. And the poles just slot into these loops on each corner, and then you've got a strong pegging point next to it there. The material is a 70D polyester. It does feel really strong. The fly's got a 3000mm hydrostatic head, and the floor inside is a 6000mm hydrostatic head, so it should be pretty waterproof. The poles are really tight to get in, but on the corners you've got a buckle on one side that you can loosen to give you a little bit of slack that helps you get the pole into place at the other side. So that's the poles in. I'll go around and peg it out and peg the doors out, but from the outside it doesn't look like it's going to be very big inside, so it'll be interesting to jump in and have a look in a minute. So there's the door pegged out. We've got 10 pegs in total around the bottom. There's 2 holding the door out, 2 right at the front where the pole goes in, 2 there where the other pole goes in. Then you've got these cord loops to pull the tent out towards the back, and then a peg at each back corner as well. Then you've got 5 guy lines around the tent, 1 at the front, 2 where the poles cross over on the sides, and then 2 at the back. I have used for tonight the pegs that came with the tent, but I would probably, as I said, use the pegs that I normally use. They're a lot lighter, and I find these shepherd's hook ones tend to just come back out the ground, or they spin around and whatever you've pegged down can just pop off. I'd be tempted to swap these guy lines as well. They're a really cheap, almost sort of shoelace material. It is stretchy as well, and I'm not a massive fan of these plastic line locks or tensioners or whatever you call them. The door itself is quite a cool design, so you can open up that side or the other side, so depending which way the wind's blowing you can shelter from it as you're getting in and out of the tent, or you can actually unpeg these 2 points here and fully open up that entrance area. The doors are held open with these decent sized toggles on really thick and strong elastic, and I like those because they're really easy to use when you've got gloves on. A lot of other tents I've had have been really fiddly with those, and they use really teeny tiny little toggle things that I always struggle with because I'm an oof. So that's what it looks like with that door fully open. It's a good idea for sort of spring and summer, but you wouldn't want to do this if there was any sort of wet or damp on this outer, because all that bunched together would just drip straight onto the inner. But it's a good option to have if it's dry, to quickly get your stuff in and out of the tent. So the inner itself is this lovely shade of fluorescent bright orange. We've got a zip that goes all the way around, and it's just linked here for probably about 3 inches. It's an O shape, so you can easily open it with one hand. And this is the inner. So we've got a pocket on that side with some mesh here, and that goes straight through to the vent on the outside. There's one of those vents on each side. There is a vent at the back end of the tent with some mesh under there, so you can actually get some airflow going all the way through the tent. In terms of dimensions on the inner, it's 220 centimeters long. It's 125 wide at the door here, and then it tapers to 105 wide at the bottom end. But let me get the rest of my stuff moved in, and then we'll see what that translates to in terms of usable space. I wanted to have a look at one of these Vango tents because of that semi-geodesic design. They're meant to be really strong and really good in wind. And after my experience with the Terra Nova or Wild Country Panacea 2 up on Kinder Scout, I want to head back up there in something that's going to be able to put up with decent winds and rough conditions. And according to the Vango website, it can handle the roughest terrain thanks to its rigidity and self-supporting structure, and it's ideal for year-round adventures. We'll be the judge of that. So that's my sleep mat in there. That's a long version of the sleep mat, and there's plenty of space for extra bits there, plenty of headroom. And then that's where I'm going to be putting my rucksack and all my other gear. So as with most 2-person tents, there's plenty of space for 1 person and gear, but you would really struggle to get 2 people in here, I think, especially if you've got a wide sleep mat like the one I've got, or you've got any amount of gear with you. You will have the vestibule to put gear in, and we'll have a proper look at that once I've got everything else in and put the door back down. So that's everything in, I think. I've got my Nemo Forte 20 bag. It's going to drop to 1 or 2 degrees overnight tonight. My Sea to Summit pillow that I've actually put the wrong way around. There we go. Light tour mat as always, and then I've just put all my other gadgets and gizmos and bits and pieces in this corner here towards the top of the bed. I will say the inner, as with most outer pitch first tents, is a little bit saggy, especially down that far end, but there is plenty of space between the inner and the outer, so it's not a massive deal. If I do end up touching that a little bit, as long as I don't touch it so much that it touches the outer, it should be all right. Oh, one thing I do want to check is whether I can sit up in this. And because the base of the tent sticks out further than the roof, I can sit here with the door going over me. Let me scooch back a little bit. I can probably just about sit here as well, but from this point backwards, the tent roof slopes down, so I can only sit in this area here. But to be fair, this is fine, I think. There's loads of space in this vestibule. Look, I can stretch my legs out as far as they'll go. You've got 1 meter of space. It obviously tapers down towards that end, but I've got plenty of room for all my drinks, water, my cook pot, and you could probably cook in this area as well, especially because the material that they use is flame retardant, so you're hopefully not going to burn your tent down even if you did have a little bit of an accident. One thing I do need to mention is the weight of the tent. It's 2.8 kilos, which is actually the same weight as the Wild Country Panacea 2 that I tried before. It's not lightweight by any means, but I would say it's reassuringly heavy, a little bit like me. And in all fairness, I've got my quite heavy winter bag, the Nemo Forte. I've got my 5.8 R-rated sleep mat. I've got a stove and my food, water, and everything else that I need. And my total pack weight for coming out tonight was only 10.6 kilos, which isn't too bad at all, I don't think. So on the face of it, it seems like quite a nice design. I think a lot of people write off these tents because of that weight, but actually, if you're comfortable carrying it, then it doesn't really matter. Obviously, the lighter it is, the easier it's going to be to carry. But if you've got a decent fitting pack that's comfortable and you can carry 2.8, 3 kilos or whatever, then does it really matter? And I'm not sure what else you can get that's this strong and sturdy for 140 quid. It does feel really solid. Obviously things might change by the morning when I spent the night in it. We'll have to see. If you've got one of these and you've used it for a while, what do you think? I forgot to say as well, I did buy the tent with my own money. It wasn't gifted or anything. Just have a quick look at the weather forecast. So sunset's in about an hour. It's going to drop to 1 degree by the morning, sunrise at 8 o'clock. Just want to check the wind and see if I need to put those guy lines out. So it's only saying 4, 5, 6 mile an hour with gusts of 12, so I probably won't bother. It's being lazy. And with the design of the tent, I don't think those guy lines are going to give me any more space inside. If the tent was a different design and pulling it out with the guy lines would give me more space inside, I would probably do it, but with the semi-geodesic design or whatever you call it, I don't think it works like that, so I'll leave it for now and peg them out later on if I need to. Might have a little bit of a fire in a bit as well when the temperature drops. I've bought my BCB stove tonight, so I'll use one of the little fuel blocks as a bit of a cheat to get a fire going. Just noticed something on this door that's a bit of a little niggle, I would say. So the zip is obviously this O shape so that it's easier to open with one hand, but I don't know why the zip doesn't go the other way and go over the top first, because if it did, you'd be able to open up the top and get a bit of extra airflow in, whereas going that way around, you're opening up air at the bottom, so it's going straight to your head or your feet through that hole there. It's just a little minor tweak that they could have done just to give you that as an option, I think. Just found a few dry little bits of kindling and sticks to hopefully get a little bit of a fire going later. I don't want a bonfire or anything like that, but it would be nice to have a little bit of ambiance. I am intrigued to see how I get on with this tent tonight. It's been a while since I got a new tent to play around with. I did try and buy, or almost bought, a Hilleberg Unna a couple of weeks ago. I saw one on eBay for 500 quid, which seems a bit too good to be true, and guess what? It turns out it was too good to be true. But I thought for that price I'd give it a go, and I knew that if it didn't turn up, then I was protected through the eBay policies, or the eBay rules, if you like. And I knew that I'd get my money back, so I gave it a go. It hasn't turned up, and I've got my money back. And the thinking with that was, obviously I do a lot of testing with cheap and budget kit and equipment, and I can only really review it for what it is. And I wanted to have a look at a top end or high end tent or piece of equipment so that I can compare the budget stuff to it. I've never tried a Hilleberg tent or a Fuel Raven or anything like that, so I can only give you my opinion on the stuff that I'm testing. I can't compare it to a Hilleberg or a high-end tent, and I think it would be quite interesting to do that comparison and see whether a tent like this Vango Helvellyn 200 is worth like a fifth or 10% of what a Hilleberg's worth, and what do you actually get when you spend that level of money. There was a small part of me that was hoping the tent did turn up as well, just so that I could own a Hilleberg. I did order some of the thicker 10mm poles and a mesh inner for the Unna as well, an inner for the Unna, and I've just sent those back and got refunds on those as well, because obviously I haven't got a tent to put them in. But just those 2 poles for the Hilleberg Unna cost more than this whole tent. I don't know if it's crazy or what, but I'll probably never find out, will I? Just found a little offcut of a log that was dry, so I've chucked that on. Just going to let it die down now, I think. So I've just let that fire die down, and I've come into the tent, and it's literally just started to rain a little bit. There is a little loop to hang a lantern or something from, but it's tiny, so you'd have to have a carabiner or, you know, like the little wire bit on the flex tail pumps to thread through that and then hang it from there. Right, I'm going to call it a night, I think. I'll see you in the morning for some initial pros and cons after my first night in this Vango Helvellyn tent. Folks, I'm going to have to wimp out on this one, I'm afraid. I just can't get warm. I'm in the Nemo Forte 20 sleeping bag that's got a comfort rating of 0. It's saying it's 2 degrees at the minute, and I've got my gloves on, my socks on, my trousers, a merino layer, and then I've swapped for my Decathlon down jacket. Still got my hat on as well, obviously, and I just can't get warm. I've had my meal as well, because I thought that might warm me up from the inside, but even that's not done the trick this time. I've had a good look at the tent, got some pros and cons already that I'll share with you in a minute, but there's no point freezing my arse off all night when I would have just been getting up in the morning and giving you this same list anyway. So initial impressions, pros of the tent. First one is obviously the price. At 140 quid delivered, it's really good value for money. Next one is strength. So that semi-geodesic design gives it some real strength, and I'm pretty confident this will stand up to some pretty rough conditions and strong winds. We will give it a test on a camp shortly. And the third one, I would say, is pretty easy to pitch. So you've just got the 3 poles, they're colour coordinated, slide them into the sleeves, plug them in at the ends into the rings, and away you go, really. And then for the cons, you can't really sit up in it properly. You can close to the door or just outside the door, but it quickly slopes down towards the back. I will change out the guy lines on the tent as well for some that are thinner and not stretchy. I've got some at home already, so it's a quick job to do, and I will use my Big Sky pegs that I use on all my camps and swap those shepherd's hook ones out, because I don't think they're very good either. And the final con is this zip. As I said earlier, it would be good if it went the other way around so that I could open the top before the bottom. And the zip itself, it's not a YKK zip or anything posh like that, because obviously it's a budget tent, but it does seem to get stuck sort of here, because there's a seam just there where it gets stuck, so you have to fanny around with it, and it's not as smooth as it could be. I know it's first world problems, but it is just a little bit annoying. So Vango tent, thumbs up. Nemo sleeping bag, a no from me. So initial impressions, pros of the tent. First one is obviously the price. At 140 quid delivered, it's really good value for money. I will be taking this back up Kinder Scout soon with some warmer sleep kit. So subscribe if you want to come along for that, and I'll see you next time.